They tell me that confession is good for the soul. So I'm going to make a confession today that goes back 73 years. My mum didn't know about it. My father didn't know about it. I don't think anyone knew about it. And it was back in the swinging 40s, long before schoolies. This was the event of the year. It was called the 5th year farewell. And just before we sat for our examinations, the 4th year students at my school would get together and they would provide a feast in the afternoon, and I never went to it. I wandered around Parramatta. Do you know why I didn't go to it? Because there was dancing. Oh, how terrible. Because I was brought up in a conservative church and it would have supported me doing that. It was about restrictions and barbed wire fences and endless notice that said, don't step on the grass, and was emphasised in the father who said to his other son, go and see what your brother's doing and tell him to stop it. So in my early days, no drinking, no smoking, no dancing, no pictures, no Sunday sport, and ladies, no makeup. And when I asked why there was no makeup, I had the perfect answer given to me. What is another word for makeup? Cosmetics. What's the Greek word for world? Cosmos. Therefore, by application, makeup is worldly. And that was the way that I was brought up as a teenager. Well, speaking of the ministry of John the Baptist, Jesus said that was like children playing at funerals. And he said, my disciples are like people playing at weddings. I came across this wonderful comment by Paul Shearer, and it seems to me that it would summarise many of the people I knew as a teenager. He says, I heard the sober comment made recently by a very intelligent person that there always seemed to be something wrong with very Christian people. They were odd somehow and said odd things with cramped little ways, as if they'd been forced into a mould they didn't fit. They wore strange clothes, strange expressions. It wasn't funny meeting them, it was fun. It wasn't fun meeting them, it was funny. And then he makes this observation, maybe, but that isn't what Christianity's done to them. It's what they've done to Christianity. Two ministers from the Church of Scotland who lived probably 40 or 50 years ago both preached sermons entitled Some Missing Notes in Christianity. One was Arthur John Gossip, the other was Leonard Small. And one of those missing notes, both of them said, was the note of joy. The hymn that we sing sometimes by Faber, but we make his love too narrow by false limits of our own, and we magnify his strictness with a zeal he will not own. And so I come today to those words that were spoken by Jesus and which seems to summarise his whole life. I have come that they might have life, life in all its fullness. Where does the story of the prodigal son end? It ends at a feast where there's dancing. Jesus said The kingdom of heaven is like a marriage feast. And so I say, where's the joy? Where's the happiness? You can't manufacture it. It's not an emotion bordering on hysteria. Let me give you an interesting example. I was watching television and I was flicking from here to there, and I came across one of the mega churches where the congregation of several thousand were singing their hearts out. And then I switched to a rock concert in Germany, and I defy anyone to tell me which was which. Leonard Small talks about an English novel in which it says Mrs. Bindle was only religious enough to be miserable. Met those people? Only religious enough to be miserable. And I think we've sometimes been guilty of the most worst of spoonerisms. We have substituted tearful chidings for cheerful tidings. The message of Jesus is good news, glad tidings of great joy. I have come that they might have life and have it in all its fullness. Many years ago, James Stewart, the great Scottish preacher, preached a sermon called Why Be a Christian? And the reasons he gave was that for the Christian, life is happier, holier and more hopeful. And the recurring theme in the gospel is that of life. I have come that they might have life and have it in all its fullness. Well, we ought to have it. We can have it. And unfortunately, too many people have a thin-blooded, anemic view of Christianity. What did Swinburne write? Thou hast conquered, pale Galilean. The world has grown grey at your breath. But we can know the splendour of its adventure and the exciting possibilities of life in Jesus Christ. Let me just read to you something about the great missionary to Labrador called William Grenfell. He says, and he asked a nurse to come out to his hospital. And what were the promises he made? Well, he said, there'll be no pay, and you'll have to pay your own way out here. But I promise you that will be the happiest time you've ever spent in your life. And after she'd been there on what was in some ways a vacation, she wrote back to him and said, you were true in what you said. I have never felt happier in my life. Because she had seen a purpose in life, and she had seen in her own life the message of Jesus lived out. I have come that you might have life and heaven more abundantly. Jesus offers us invitation to life. Let's take it with both hands and rejoice. Amen.